On today's show, after the Capitals place Jakub Vrana on waivers, the Nashville Predators claim him, and what is the outlook for Alexeyev next on this edition of Locked On Capitals?
Your Locked On Capitals, your daily podcast on the Washington Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Well, hello and welcome into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Dan Holme. I've covered the Capitals for the last 3 seasons for Locked On and various other outlets before that. I'm also the host of the weekly show called The Capitals Minutecast, available wherever you find your podcasts. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. So in this edition of Locked On Capitals, we talk about the breakout season for Pierre-Luc Dubois. Take a look at the move that was made last summer, the move that sent Darcy Kemper out to the Kings. In return, the Capitals got Pierre-Luc Dubois. It was met with quite a bit of skepticism, but what has he meant for the Capitals this season? He has been an absolute game changer. I'll talk about that a bit later. I'll talk about the future of Alexeyev. As he had his reconditioning stint down in Hershey, now back with the big team. What does that mean as the trade deadline is tomorrow? But just to get it going here, the big news surrounding Jakub Vrana, Jake the Snake, as he was placed on waivers by the Capitals and subsequently claimed by the Nashville Predators today. And you take a look at it, it was at the end of the day, a feel-good story, at least last fall, that Jakub Vrana, who has had a bit of a troubled go of it since the last time he's played with the Capitals, bringing back those vintage vibes and all those fond memories of when Jakub Vrana was a much younger man, joined the team on a PTO, a professional tryout, and eked his way into finding a roster spot. But it has been a bit tough sledding for Jakub this season as he has had limited opportunity. And why is that? Well, the Capitals have not had a tremendous amount of injury this season, so there has not been a lot of opportunities for him or any of the other healthy scratches for that matter. So at the end of the day, I think that they want to look at him as a piece that they can, that they had to move on from as they were looking to clear cap space, as I think the Capitals will be active tomorrow. To what capacity, I guess that remains to be seen, but just the move alone, placing him on waivers showed that they were looking up to free up some money to hopefully make a push to make a big acquisition on Friday. So that is the hope. And at the end of the day, I'm happy for him. If he gets more opportunity with the Predators, I know he is going to be a free agent this summer. So he is really going to have to bring it, and he's going to be able to do it with a familiar face in Nashville Predators GM Barry Trotz. But just to get it going here, let's dig into that. The very latest with Jakub Vrana being claimed off the waiver wire by the Nashville Predators. And, you take a look at the Predators, they are not having the season that they had hoped for, despite making those big acquisitions that were made in the summer, that this team has failed to live up to expectation. And this is a significant career move for Jakub Vrana, who is that check forward who has been a fan favorite. Despite not being in the lineup on a regular basis, he is still was well-liked in the locker room and also by the fans themselves. And it was a piece by Sammy Silber out here somewhat recently detailing his time with the Capitals and spending so much time in the penalty or as a healthy scratch that it's been tough for him mentally. That he thought he was going to have another new opportunity on the Capitals, but has spent a lion's share of his time as a healthy scratch. After being placed on waivers by the Capitals, a move aimed at sending him to the AHL affiliate, the Hershey Bears, the Predators, swooped in just before the NHL's 2 p.m. deadline on Thursday to secure his services. So that would have given the Capitals, their AHL affiliate Hershey Bears, a boost, ostensibly, as he is a pretty good player, all things considered, as an NHL player, quite a substantially better player in the American Hockey League. It would stand to reason. But as it turns out, opportunity came knocking in the form of the Nashville Predators. And, a lot like Jakub Vrana has had to face this season, another great opportunity to prove himself. This move was first announced by Elliot Friedman from Sportsnet. But talking about performance analysis, this season during his second stint with the Caps, he notched 11 points, 7 goals, and 4 assists over 26 games. Now, I guess the big question is what kind of points, how many goals would he have put up had he had regular playing time? As we know, it was a bit of a turnstile at that third line with Mangiapane. You take a look at it, Eller, who was brought in. There has been, like I say, a turnstile, a lot of different players. Now Ethan Frank in the mix there as well, that it did not seem that there was a clear path for him on the big team, the Capitals. His last game with the Caps was against the Blues on February 27th after being sidelined for almost 2 months. And it's not just Jakub Vrana. They were talking about it. Dylan McElrath spoke about it as well, as that, he's used to this. He's been there. He's done that, but it doesn't make it any easier that, you're here, you're on the big team, but you don't get any playing time. It has to be difficult for these players psychologically. But even with limited ice time, Vrana showcased his offensive talent, ranking 17th in the NHL for goals per 60 minutes, an impressive 2.34, right behind his former teammate, Alex Ovechkin. So you take a look at it. The time that he did put in, his time on ice, he made the most of it. But again, I just don't think that he lived up to the expectations of Spencer Carberry and the Capitals, and they had more viable options. Now, I'm here to say that if there was more playing opportunity, in the form of saying a player got injured, that kind of thing, I think he may have found a more forever home, or at least maybe an extension at some point. But it's also noteworthy is his shooting percentage is 25% with 7 goals on 28 shots. So, I think, when Barry Trotz was looking at him, he was familiar with who he was. And I think that there's a pretty good upside. And, I don't know what kind of playing time he's going to get in Nashville, or if he ends up getting assigned to their AHL affiliate. But I think that on paper, there's a good upside, and sometimes a change of zip code can be exactly what the doctor ordered. Take a look at Pierre-Luc Dubois, who I will talk about in the last segment of the show. But at 29, Vrana was eager to return to the Caps during training camp via PTO. He impressed coaches and landed a 1-year contract at $775,000. So not making a lot of money being an NHL player, still pretty good for you or I, but all things considered, I think was happy to be playing on an NHL team, for one, and number two, a team that he was familiar with. But prior to his signing, he expressed his passion saying, quote, "I want to be a part of this team," unquote. And I believe it, as I think there was familiarity with, Ovechkin and Wilson, these kind of guys, but it was hard for him as he did not see a lot of playing time. He said, "I love this team, and it's great to be back here for the camp and try my best to earn a spot on the team," unquote. He did that. But, again, this isn't a true knock on Vrana and what kind of player he is and the numbers that he has put up this season, just not a lot of opportunities. But for him, it will be a reunion in Nashville because of GM Barry Trotz, as you know, was the head coach of the Capitals and who guided him to success during the Capitals Stanley Cup run in 2018. Barry Trotz, he remembered, just like there was rumors out there at one point before Kuzi went over to Russia, that the Predators were interested in Kuznetsov. So Barry Trotz, like an elephant, has a good memory and remembered what kind of player that Vrana and Kuzi were. In that playoff series, Vrana contributed significantly with 8 points, 3 goals, and 5 assists across 23 games, including that crucial goal in Game 5 against the Golden Knights. But however, it's worth noting that the relationship hasn't been without its challenges. Barry Trotz shared some critiques of Vrana's performance in the past. So there's not going to be any give-me's for Jakub Vrana. He is going to have to earn a spot and not a lot of time to do it. Like I say, he will be a free agent this summer, but ultimately, the Predators took a flyer on him and to see if in fact there is more of a long-term home for him in Nashville. But looking ahead for the Predators, who are currently struggling in the standing, 16 points out of the second wild card spot. Not going so well for Barry Trotz in the big boy chair. Vrana's addition is a strategic move as they approach the trade deadline. Is there the possibility that Nashville could in turn flip him, bundle him, flip him? Absolutely. Stranger things have happened, but with the team in sell mode, they're looking to improve their competitiveness. The Predators, that is. Plus, with Vrana set to become an unrestricted free agent this summer, he's got added motivation to prove himself with Nashville. I think that it was a good flyer for the Predators to take, as there is a history with Barry Trotz, and taking a look at his numbers and what he was able to put up for the Capitals in limited playing time. I think it was a risk worth taking. It'll be interesting to see how it ultimately all plays out. All right, so coming up here after the break, we'll talk about Alexeyev. He was on that conditioning stint down in Hershey as another Capitals player who has not had a lot of playing time. And why is that? Well, there has not been a lot of injury on the blue line. So do the Capitals have a bigger plan of moving him tomorrow? I'll discuss straight ahead. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. So if you want to be interested in a game that maybe you're not normally interested in, or a Wizards game, open up the FanDuel app, put a little bit of money on the game. All of a sudden, it got that much more exciting. So go to FanDuel right now, as FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You can find me over on Twitter. It's at DanCaps218. You can find the show on Twitter. It's at Locked On Caps. So in this segment here, we're talking about Alexeyev. And is there the master plan to try to move him on the deadline? I think that is a distinct possibility, as he is a guy that has patiently waited for his opportunity on the big team. He got it. He's here. But bad news is that he has been a healthy scratch for pretty much the lion's share of this season. So it has been tough for Alexeyev. Like I said, that there's been opportunities that I thought it was going to be his chance. And then he got injured. And then it's going to be his chance. And they acquired someone during the summer that I think that if the Capitals can move him somewhere and get some sort of return, or potentially bundle him with another player to get a decent return, I think that is the right idea. Why? Because I think the Capitals have a glut of talent on the blue line, whether it's on the big team or down in Hershey. So let's talk about the very latest with Alexeyev. The Capitals have recalled him from his conditioning loan with the Hershey Bears, and there's a lot to unpack here. First off, Alexeyev had a solid stint down in AHL, posting 2 assists and a +5 rating in just 3 games. In his first game getting a primary assist. So that rust that potentially could have been on the gears was not apparent. And it's great to see him finding his game again, especially since he's had a bit of a tough season with the Caps so far, playing in only 5 games. And that was the right move. Even if they don't move him, is that say they need him as depth as the Capitals are making their push for the playoffs, that he is going to be minty fresh and ready to go at 25 years old and standing at 6'4", 229. He's definitely a player that has potential, but with the trade deadline looming tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern, he could become a piece in trade talks. And again, you didn't hear that outside of anywhere else except for here on Locked On Capitals. It is me pontificating, throwing it at the wall, sticking my finger to the air, and seeing a potential there. But as far as the roster implications for the Capitals, as Jakub Vrana being placed on waivers and sent out or claimed, shall we say, by Nashville, the Capitals have a roster spot to fill, and there's whispers that they're actively looking for a solid third-line center. Where have you heard that? That Lars Eller was brought in, another one of the players that I think they were looking for those vintage vibes, and has had an okay go of it with the Capitals, but I definitely think they could use an upgrade. While Alexeyev plays defense, he could be used as a trade chip to help land that coveted center role. The Caps are in a position where they need to bolster their lineup, especially as they push towards the playoffs. And what has been glaringly apparent in the last game, as well as they won the game, but it had to go into overtime yet again. So it has been a tough go of it for the Capitals in the game before that, overtime, and then losing 3 games that I think they are looking for stability. But like I've said before, that I think they have the winners. I think they have the ingredients within the locker room to turn it around. Those very same players are the ones that got the Capitals in the position that they're at right now, that even if they go outside of the organization, I don't think that is going to help the team play better as far as playing a more clean game and clean up some of the sloppy play that we've seen. But as far as Alexeyev's draft history and future, it's worth noting Alexeyev was a first-round draft pick in 2018 and has shown he can put up decent numbers in the American League, racking up 52 points in 145 games. But you take a look at it, the Capitals are in need of immediate help. They may be willing to part with him if it secures them a depth piece that they need at the center position. So you take a look at it, the Capitals playing the Rangers, like I said last night, and on paper, that should have been a pretty easy game for the Capitals. But at the end of the day, it could have been a coin flip who was going to win the game. And who said that before? Frank Saravalli. At the time when the Capitals were tied for the first team in all of the National Hockey League, he mentioned that the Capitals have been good, but still a team that is not truly battle-tested. And we've seen this team take on some pretty heavy enemy fire. And how have they fared? Meh. Not the best, not the worst. Definitely room for improvement. Now, with the deadline fast approaching, keep an eye on the news regarding Alexeyev right here. Keep it locked to Locked On Capitals, as I will have another episode for you guys tomorrow, updating you with all the potential moves that surround your favorite team and mine, the Capitals. My knee-jerk reaction on it is they will make a move to address that third-line center position and maybe a depth defenseman as well, as you like to have options if your team faces injury or something of that nature, as there is, still a significant amount of games to play in the regular season. And then you add on all the potential playoff games and Stanley Cup run that you really need to have your cupboard full so you can face any type of storm. That's what I think is going to happen. I don't see the Capitals making any huge moves. I don't see them going out and trying to acquire Ratnin or crazy thoughts, things I've heard about there, like Crosby, something of that. I think it's going to be some of the names that we've mentioned out there before, Donato, a lot, and these kind of guys that, as I'm recording this, I will say at 4:17, if it happens after that, you'll have to forgive me. But I think that a player like that is exactly what the Capitals need. They don't necessarily need that big marquee name. They just need a little help to help push them across the finish line. All right, so coming up here after the break, we'll talk about Pierre-Luc Dubois, a guy that was looking for a bounce-back season. He was looking for a team to take a chance on him. He found that in the Capitals. What has he meant for this team? I'll discuss straight ahead. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. The best way that you can help grow the show is to subscribe to Locked On Capitals on YouTube and comment anything down below. In this segment here, we're talking Pierre-Luc Dubois and what a big impact he has made for the Capitals this season. And I remember my knee-jerk reaction last summer when I heard it happened. Needless to say, I was less than thrilled because I listened to all the outside noise that everyone is telling me, my fellow Locked On hosts and everyone, the podcast said, oh my God, what are the Capitals thinking? Are they crazy? As it turns out, it was a stroke of genius by former GM Brian McClellan. These quote unquote risky moves that were taking place last summer have paid off huge, and no other player in that mix other than maybe Logan Thompson is Pierre-Luc Dubois. Darcy Kuemper out to the left coast. Pierre-Luc Dubois, you can come with us out east, has been huge for the Capitals. At the end of the day, Darcy Kuemper, a square peg in a round hole, and Pierre-Luc Dubois was hungry to prove to the NHL at large that he is still a really great player. And has done that all season. I think the Capitals were looking for a good center, as Kuznetsov, we know, is no longer on the team. And they had a slot that they needed to fill. There was thoughts initially that he would be the first-line center, but as it's turned out, he has played primarily as the second-line center. But in any event, the players that have played around him have only got better playing with him. I'm talking Connor McMichael. I'm talking Tom Wilson. And we've seen, samples of him with Alexei Protas as well. So definitely has been a game changer for the Capitals this season. I will say the quotes in this next segment here are from the Daily Faceoff. But after being drafted third overall by Columbus in 2016, he has experienced a bit of a whirlwind in his NHL career. Think back to the Kings, and everyone's like, what were the Kings thinking? Signing him to an 8-year contract. And what are the Capitals thinking signing him, where he'll be here potentially for the next 7 years? That is what the contract states anyway. But all things a good move by the Capitals. And I should have seen it more clearly, as he had a bad season with the Kings, but all things considered, had a good go of it in Winnipeg, had a good go of it with Columbus. That, it's easy that we are easy and quick to be dismissive of a player because they had one bad season. What has he meant for the Capitals? Well, a lot. After an impressive stint in Columbus, with 2 solid years in Winnipeg, Dubois made his way to the Capitals this past summer following a trade from the Kings. And what did he mean? Right out of the gate, making waves. As of now, Dubois is on track to crush his previous career high of 63 points from the 2022-2023 season. He's got 53 points in just 62 games this season. How you like that, rest of the NHL? You still laughing? I'll take a while to listen here. Crickets. No one wanted to be wrong about Pierre-Luc Dubois. Has been an absolute game changer for this team. And it's clear he's found his groove with this team with a really tight locker room, and was welcoming to a player that was looking for a second opportunity, a bit of a reclamation project, if you can believe it. And he's expressing a lot of happiness in his role. In chemistry is something I've spoke of ad nauseum on this show, and how important that has been with this year's Capitals team. What's really exciting is how Dubois credits the team's success to the leadership of veterans like Ovechkin, Carlson, Wilson, and Nick Dowd. He emphasizes how crucial team culture is, blending competitiveness with the fun. To quote him, he said, quote, "I don't think you can win a Stanley Cup because you have the best team chemistry, but you're not going to win the Stanley Cup without team chemistry," unquote. Touche. And I think that he has kind of taken a bit of a jab at the Kings with that comment, as it was said that the locker room and the chemistry for the Kings when he was there was less than stellar, that he did not feel those welcoming vibes that he has felt from the Capitals. And it's funny, when you welcome a player with open arms instead of a judgmental eye, well, what do you know? Great things have happened. Such wisdom coming from a player who is really focused on fitting into the group. And again, to get familiar with him, the Break the Ice podcast, when he was on with Mike Vogel, talked about his history, his dad being a coach, and just how he has played hockey from the earliest years of his life and really earned his stripes to get where he's at right now. But as far as building rapport with his teammates, we saw a glimpse of the rapport with the team during a recent morning skate before the matchup against the Rangers, writes the Daily Faceoff. Dubois was engaging in great conversation with both teammates and coaches, showcasing that communicative nature he's known for. A bit of a chatty Cathy, if you will, but I like a master communicator than a guy that sticks to himself. No offense, Matt Roy. He pointed out how various personalities in the locker room create a fun atmosphere, saying, quote, "You put all those personalities together and it meshes well." In yesterday's show, I talked about how the Capitals as pranksters, how they're keeping things lighthearted, and what has been part of the secret sauce for this year's success. But reflecting on past connections, additionally, Dubois took a moment to reflect on his time with Matt Roy with the Kings. He commended Roy for not only his on-ice impact, but also fostering team cohesion off the ice. You take a look at Matt Roy's, he is one of the strong, steady leaders on this team, that he is not a guy that is very verbose, doesn't say a whole lot, but his actions on the ice speak louder than words. And getting into a fight here recently, his first fight, that he is definitely bought in to the team culture. And yet another player from the Kings that is going to be here in the long term. But as Dubois continues to settle into his role with the Capitals, his growing comfort and connections within the team bode well for the rest of the season. As far as I'm concerned, do I have any reservations? Do I think the Capitals made any kind of mistake by trading for and acquiring Pierre-Luc Dubois? None whatsoever. There has been nothing that I've seen out on the ice that I've heard from Kings fans, that he kind of mails it in and that he's a cancer in the locker room. Pierre-Luc Dubois, a cancer in the locker room, seems to be one of the most lighthearted, likable guys out there, that I think it was a true mismatch playing with the Los Angeles Kings. Their loss is the Capitals' gain, as he has been a huge piece with the Capitals' success. Again, the quotes in this segment are from the Daily Faceoff, but a huge player for the Capitals this season. I look forward to what he'll mean for the Capitals in the playoffs. And you saw his big, imposing figure is tough. His ability to see the ice so well and shut down some of the top lines in the NHL, well, that speaks volumes about him in and of itself. As far as the move is concerned, the trade, at the time, like I say, I didn't see the value in it, but having time to reflect and seeing what he has meant to the team this year, I'm loving every minute of it. All right. Once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, your only daily year-round podcast covering the Capitals. And I want to thank all of you that listen on the audio side and watch this on YouTube. You are what makes this show successful. When you're done here, head on over to Locked On NHL, as they have you covered 5 days a week, covering the news of all over the NHL, available wherever you find your podcasts and on YouTube. All right, once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It is your team every day. My name is Dan Holme, and I'll talk to you again next time.